people call South Main. I've never known where that started because there's North Main, Main, South Main.
It probably starts in Buffalo.
Okay, yeah, that's it. Yeah. The purpose of this video is for...
Gotta get the microphone up near you, Raleigh.
The purpose of the video is for a pre-construction survey on contract number 3 for the Village of Champlain sewer improvement. I'm Raleigh Palmer. I represent Palmer Construction Incorporated.
David Glenn from LaBerge Engineering.
Alan Perrier for the Village of Champlain.
We're at the location of what will be referred to as manhole connection on Cedar Street, and it's on Main Street. We're standing between the Robin's Nest and Auto Parts of Champlain. I'd like to bring your attention to the state of the blacktop prior to construction at this location. We're going to proceed from here in northerly direction up the street, and we'll identify what we look at the sidewalks and the foundations of the buildings that are existing here now prior to construction. Okay, we're standing directly in front of Auto Parts of Champlain on the edge of Cedar Street. If you will identify the sidewalk in this area, it has quite a slope to the center, reveal, and it's in a depleted state.
I want to point out that curve too, Raleigh. It's not there is no separate curve.
And I'd also like to point out that on the street side, Route 9 side, that the curbing, there isn't curbing here. What it actually is a dropped reveal on sidewalk. And that's at the location of the first catch basin on Main Street. That's a good idea. We're proceeding a little farther up the street. We'll be now identifying the front of Auto Parts Champlain and trying to give a visual explanation as to what we see. We see here it appears to be a granite type block. It's in fairly good condition in this location. There are some cracks, as I'm pointing out here. That's cracks in the mortar, some cracks in the actual blocking itself. If you look where the sidewalk meets the bottom of the blocks, there's a little bit of a reveal there as we're looking at it. The corner, right on the extreme corner here, the sidewalk is separated from the block approximately 1.5 inches. Still continuing towards the main entrance of Auto Parts Champlain, you'll notice that the sidewalk is separated. That sidewalk with the actual steps to the front of the building have separated, and there's a crack here approximately starting at a 1/2 inch down to 3/8 of an inch, and this continues all the way along the front steps. We anticipate having to replace these because they're sitting on top of the sidewalk. Also, immediately adjacent to these steps, you will see there are several cracks that are separating. The apparent reason for this is foundation deterioration.
That goes in. Not that far.
Also at same location, you will see that the mortar is decomposing back for several inches back under the concrete blocking that's there, or granite blocking that's there. We'll continue in a northerly direction, north side of that step, the entrance step. It's a very similar mortar. Again, is almost in the sand, decomposed. Crack on the front steps or entrance steps. Appears as though it's settling a little bit. Continue along the front of this building, looking at the sidewalk, right where the sidewalk meets the granite. It has separated slightly in that location, and coming to the extreme corner of this building, the sidewalk in fact has a reveal of approximately 1/2 inch with several cracks.
That was up there in a very tenuous condition, Raleigh.
So you notice here the facing of the front of this building, it isn't held on very well. Just by looking at it, it has fallen off. Sure, I'm glad this fell off now. I don't believe it was on. It must have been just stuck up in. Okay. At this exact location, there is some temporary sidewalk been put in out of bituminous concrete. There is a water service which services Auto Parts of Champlain. Noted in the bituminous concrete, this is work performed by Palmer Construction on the previous contract. And you'll notice the sidewalks in pretty depleted state around it. We have some settlement underneath the bituminous concrete, which, of course, when we put new sidewalk in, won't be there. Again, looking up the street, you'll see that there's quite an indentation in the sidewalk. If we can run our camera towards the buildings at this point, I don't know if it's how well it's going to identify it, so I'll narrate it. The sidewalk at the building has a reveal approximately 18 inches down to the sidewalk that's settling here of 2 inches. As we proceed in front of the property owned by Manny Coupal, it's known as Manny's Bar, at the location of 55 Main. The steps appear to be in good condition. Going into this location, everything leading up to the steps is in a pretty much depleted state, as you can note by looking here. I'm looking down through a crack next to the step in the sidewalk, and I can see in there approximately 8-9 inches down. So apparently it's hollow underneath this location. Again, in front of the Coupal property, 55, and the actual entrance to Manny's Bar, you can note the separation from the sidewalk and the foundation in this location. You also note the at 57 Main, the entrance to Manny's and 57 Main is a shared entrance, and you can see that the concrete steps on the front are again in a depleted state, and where it meets the actual foundation, there's a separation of approximately 1.25 inches, and this is typical throughout the whole step. And the steps themselves show a tremendous amount of wear. Other than that, in the front of this building, it appears to be in pretty good shape until we get beyond the main entrance to Manny's Bar, and directly in front of it, it looks as though it could use some facing on the concrete here, on the granite facing on the concrete, where they had some inserted stone. And the steps, again, are still typical of what you've seen on the other location at 57 Main, which is the building immediately adjacent to this. Again, looking at the concrete facing on the front of Manny's, it appears as though there was some single facing of concrete to support the foundation at this location. If you look at where the foundation wall meets the sidewalk, you will note that the concrete is in fact separating and the sidewalk is settling. This is from an outward appearance. With further pre-construction survey in the basement, we will identify what the problems are at this location. I would like to also point directly in front of the bay window, or the picture window at Manny's. Looking at the sidewalk in this location, there are several cracks and deficiencies in the sidewalk. We're standing directly in front of a utility pole. I'm attempting to find a number, and the number on this pole is CT E5. E5 is the identification number on this pole at this location. Again, at this point we'll go to the north corner on Main Street of Manny's Bar, and you'll see that that single facing has completely separated off the building. Again, it appears the sidewalk in front of this building is in poor condition, and is typical throughout this location heading north on Main Street. Stop for a second. Okay, at this point I would like to go back to the point of beginning on Champlain Auto Parts and take a visual on the front of each of these buildings and identify any defections we may see at this location. Also would like to state that The sign post here that's in front of Manny's probably will be removed and reinstalled by the direction of the owner if it becomes necessary. We're standing directly in front of the structure known as Auto Parts of Champlain. We are trying to demonstrate that the building in the front, the lower half, is basically in good shape. You get to the upper half and you'll notice on the right side of the building, the brick structure above the window, the immediate right, top right corner, is cracked all the way up into the roof line in the brick. Coming down at that exact location, the window directly below it, I'll bring your attention to the sill on the lower window on the right side, just below, you'll notice that it's cracked and separating all the way down to the white cornice that goes around the front of the entrance. We'll move over here closer and try and get a little better view of what we're talking about. Here it's more depictable that the cracks are obvious below the window. The crack extrudes from the sill at the bottom of the window right down to the top of the facing above the entrance. Looking upwards at this point, I believe it demonstrates clearly the identifying crack that goes right up into the roof line from the right corner of the second story window to the roof line itself. I think those are all the notable defects in front of this building at this location. Again, we're proceeding up Main Street, heading in front of Manny's. We're on the north corner of Manny's Bar on Main Street, and you'll note that where the brick facing on this building meets the main brick structure in a vertical direction, there's a crack that continues straight up the whole building, 3/4 of the way up to the roof line. You can see the separation on the mortise to the base brick at this location. Excuse me, I've been informed that this crack continues right to the top of the roof line. At this same location, down at ground level, you'll note that there is mortar where I'm pointing. The mortar is very broken. It's almost in a sand form, and the foundation blocks themselves have no mortar in between them at this location. We're going to turn next to show the alley between Manny's Bar and the next dwelling, which, Alan, do you know the number of this location? Well, we're not exactly sure of the number at this location. However, it has aluminum siding on the dwelling. Looking down the alley, again, I identify it's immediately adjacent to Manny's Bar on the north side. You will note that the foundation is in extremely poor condition. It's all falling away from the building. This is typical throughout the whole alleyway on this dwelling. On the Main Street side, outside of the alley, if you note where I'm pointing, the foundation is in very poor condition. Again, this is typical throughout this whole location in the front. Sidewalk in front of this property is also in a depleted state, which is anticipated restoring. We're at the same location. I'm going to note a noted crack. It's approximately 2.5 inches open on the face of this concrete entrance area, and this crack opens up and has been mortared in, which is still cracking all in considerable areas, and it goes back to as wide as 10 inches width. Next to the building, where there's a sign that says no trespassing, please take notice. If you look directly below that, you will note that the concrete is also in a very depleted state all through this location.
I mean, I didn't realize it. I sat there on Saturday. Do something to do on a Saturday.
We're continuing to the north side of this structure. At this point, I'm going to bring your attention to the porch, where the porch is separating from the main building up near the top, where the porch meets the main structure. It is separating approximately a ½ inch. The porch itself is in pretty much a depleted state. It slopes down on one corner. It's dropped about 6 to 8 inches down. The corner post is cracked. The foundation below this is also sinking. If you look as I'm pointing, my hand would be level. If it came across, it would go right down and touch the top of the porch on the far location over here. There's at least a 9-inch reveal from one end to the other. Again, we note that the sidewalk in this location has several cracks. We'll just turn once at this location and look upwards on the street. The sidewalk in this location appears to be in fairly good condition, except for the fact that it's irregular in its drainage profile. If you note here, we're looking down south on Main Street, and we're turning the camera in a northerly direction, and you'll notice the sidewalk is pretty typical through this area, where there's a sign here. Can't read what's on. I'm on the back side of it. You'll see that there was an old signpost that was in the ground that has been terminated, and the sidewalk in that area has several cracks in it. This is not a major consideration due to the fact that we're going to be replacing all of this sidewalk with new construction. Now just in case I did not give the date that we are taking this pre-construction survey, it's Wednesday, the 17th of July, 1991. Time now is approximately 1 o'clock. We've been videoing for probably 45 minutes. Or, no, that would be incorrect. 25 minutes? 25 minutes. Now we're at 60 in front of the building, which has office space for rent, and there's a sign on the front of the building that says mini storage space. And the number on the front of this building is 61 Main. At this point, I'll point to the blacktop which goes down the side of this building. It's on the south side of the building, going towards a set of a porch. It's up the side. The blacktop does not look in very good condition at all. We'll now direct the camera towards the front of the building, where that is typical through the front approach to the building. As we're proceeding more towards the front of the building, I would like to note that we have a bituminous concrete overlay over masonry concrete. Apparently, and this is the opinion of this narrator, that this bituminous concrete was placed on top of this because the sidewalk was more than likely in a deteriorated state below, and to correct the imperfections in it, there was a bituminous concrete overlay. This is typical throughout the front of this whole structure. Looking directly at the left front side of the building, facing the building, the structure appears to be in reasonably good shape, with the exception of the left corner, where it shows some cracking in the bricks going up through. This is typical for approximately 9 feet, and it breaks off to the corner above. The rest of the facing of this building, heading towards the center, appears to be good until you come to the window which I'm standing in front of, and you note down by where the masonry meets the wood, there is a separation at this location. The separation is from the ground settling in front of this, and the concrete is separating away from the main foundation of the house. Also, if I point back towards where the bituminous concrete meets the main foundation, you'll note there's an inch separation there at this location, and it continues to be more in the left front of the house as you're facing it. And that's caused from poor ground conditions at this location, which the ground is settling and pulling away. I'm now standing almost directly in front of the entrance to 61 Main, and I'd like to show that the front steps at this location have settled and have separated considerably from the main structure. You've got a granite threshold here, and you'll note that there's an inch space between this location and it's pretty much in a deteriorated state. All of the concrete masonry at this location. Looking at the front of the building appears to be in pretty good shape throughout. All the obvious imperfections at this location appear to be on the front of the building and at the ground level that's existing now. It appears as though the whole front yard in this building is separated, which is typical throughout this street, Main Street at this location. Again, I'd like to state it's typical through this whole road area that the sidewalk will be replaced. We're now at the extreme north side of 61 Main, and I noticed there's some imperfections in the actual foundation that's existing here. And there's a vertical crack that comes down and offsets like a step, and the bricks are falling apart here at this location. And it's typical of the whole corner in this area. From approximately 4 feet up, it appears to be in pretty good condition, continuing upwards. We're now looking down the right side of the building as you face it from Main Street. There's a concrete entrance that is in very poor condition. It's broken up almost as though a jackhammer has cracked it in several locations, and it's also way off level. I think this will continue our pre-construction survey at this location. We will proceed north. Okay, we're back on again. We're looking at what I'm going to refer to as Armstrong's Alley. Mr. Armstrong owns a place of business off Cedar Street, down where I'm pointing. The former Champlain Hotel is the location I'm pointing to now. That's also 61 Main. The area here it's a gravel road coming down through. Right at the Main Street location, it turns to bituminous concrete, and we'll be digging through this area. The concrete has some defections in it, which you can note here, going around. And there's only about 3 to 4 feet of this out off the gravel entrance. And then from there, the blacktop appears to be in pretty good shape. We're now proceeding in a northerly direction. It's 63 Main Street. You'll note where the sandwich is on the street. I'm sure that won't be there at a later date. However, if you're looking at the sidewalk, this location, all the sidewalk down Armstrong's Alley is in extremely poor condition. It's busted up like rubble, concrete rubble. The entrance steps at 61 Main Street tip towards the building, and the corner of the building, 63 Main Street, the steps tip towards the building. And you'll note at this location that the foundation is in extremely poor condition. It's falling away on this corner where it meets the sidewalk on Main Street. This is typical throughout the whole building at this location. It's a concrete block foundation where I can put my hand underneath the top of the block at this point, this location. Also, there's a vertical crack that goes right down to the sidewalk here. It's in very poor condition. The sidewalk is also typical of the condition that we're experiencing right here. Again, we come over to the Main Street location. We have a catch basin frame and grate here. The catch basin frame and grate, you will note that the masonry around this is in extremely poor condition, and the grate itself, which states on it that machinery company of Plattsburgh, has a crack in the concrete, iron grate itself. At this location, we are standing in front of pole L1-E. We'll now be continuing our survey in a northerly direction. The sidewalk is typical throughout this location. The front of the building is typical throughout this location. There are many cracks in the bricks around this front window, entrance window. You can, as noted, on both sides, it's separating. As we continue northerly, this location is typical of what we have. The building itself, the wood part of this building is in good condition. As I'm walking here, I will show where the wood shows a lot of wear. Here, at this point here, the wood appears to be not in terribly bad condition, but it looks poor, and the masonry below it is falling apart. The bricks that I'm pointing to here appear to be good. We show some cracks on the right side of the second foundation window going down. As I continue, you'll see cracks all the way through the masonry, down through. The bricks on top are cracked and separated. Someone has attempted to parge them. Looking down the front of the building, it's very difficult to show, but it looks as though it's a snake. It goes in and out all the way through, and this is caused by the foundation deterioration. We're going to attempt to show this on video. What I'm going to do is just point up through, and you'll see where it goes in and out, right down through. I hope that the video picks this up accurately, but it's off a considerable amount. We're going to walk a little bit closer here, and I'm going to show you how far off it is. The sidewalk at this location here is separated from the wall, where you can put your finger into it, which shows the foundation is in fact moving in. It has been single-faced externally several times to correct this. I'm showing that at this location. I can show 2 layers of facing on this with an attempt by someone to correct the foundation from going in. All these noted defections I've made are, at this point, are at the north side of this building, and there's an apartment here, and the address in the front of it is 67 Main. I'm looking from the left side of the entranceway, and it shows the sill is rotted, and the front entrance steps are broken up. The threshold is broken, all of the masonry that's here. Right corner of 67 Main entrance, you can see that the masonry is in a depleted state and is falling apart. Sidewalk, again, typical, not in good condition whatsoever. We're proceeding a little bit north, looking down a gravel drive. There's a shortage of gravel on the gravel drive. It has a lot of potholes in it. Other than that, it isn't too terribly bad. We're going to turn towards Main Street.
That corner has really...
Yes, interesting point. The corner, again, just below the number to the building, approximately 2.5 feet down, you'll notice there's a crack and the foundation is separated and it's moving away. And this is typical throughout the return on the right angle of the building. This crack continues right down to the ground, and the masonry again is pulling away. At this location, where we're going to be looking towards the reveal in the entrance to the alley, the gravel road here, again, the concrete sidewalk and approach apron, concrete apron coming into the sidewalk to the main road is in poor condition. Looking northerly, we're going to view on the trees that are at this location. I'd like to identify that they appear to be in very decent condition. This first tree right at the location of the power pole, I will identify the number on that power pole in a moment, shows some dead limbs in the interior, the center part of the tree. If you look up in, there are several dead limbs in here, but outside of that, the foliage appears to be in very good shape. It's a nice tree, and I would like to be able to tell you what kind of tree it is, but I'm not sure. It's either oak or maple, and I don't know the difference. It's a maple. I've been corrected and said that it's a maple. Let me see if I can pick a number for you off of the telephone pole that's existing. It's pole E8L103. At this location of that pole, again looking down the graveled alleyway, we'd like to show that the concrete sidewalk going to the right side of the alleyway as you're looking down towards Cedar Street, the concrete sidewalk is in poor condition. We also have a dwelling here at this location. It's a white house, and I believe it is 69 Main. I'd like to bring your attention to the corner post on the front porch. The corner post in the front porch, the foundation for it is in poor condition, and the wood is also in equally poor condition at this location on the corner pillar and the supports for it and the actual decking. Looking down the side of this building, I'd like to note that the foundation at this location is a granite foundation and the concrete masonry has fallen away. If the camera will depict this, you'll see that the masonry at this location is standing freely on its own and the blocks themselves have moved in. This is normally caused by horizontal pressure from frost. That's approximately 12 feet down the building from the southeast corner. It goes 12 feet down the alley, then the foundation appears for the next 15 feet to be in fairly decent condition. There's some concrete masonry imperfections, but not nothing of tremendous significance. The sidewalk, although, is typical throughout in poor condition. We still going? Okay, we're now standing directly in front of 69 Main. Again, the sidewalk at this location is typical. It's in fairly poor condition. The entrance steps to 69 Main, the slab in front of the wooden steps, has a large crack in it, shows a little bit of settlement. The building itself is in good condition, with the exception of the porch on the front and the brick piers. They are not in very good condition at all. Now, from the last mention of 69 Main, on the south end, the first tree, we depicted the condition of that. The second tree also appears to be in fine condition. It's showing good foliage, with the exception of some small limbs in the center of the tree. This tree is in pretty good shape. The third tree down heading north on Main Street appears to be in pretty good shape too, although I can see a couple broken limbs up in the inner body of the tree. Foliage is excellent on the tree, however. We'd like to note here at this location that we do have curbing. We do not anticipate having to do anything with that curbing at this point. Okay, we're immediately adjacent to 69 Main. If you look at the sidewalk at this location, the sidewalk's in very good shape. Unfortunately, the new pipeline goes right through here, so it will be torn out and replaced. The lawn area, condition A, B, and C, condition A being the best, condition B being second, and third being the worst. The lawn area at this location are probably in condition B. Very neat, however, the growth is very thin due to the shaded area. We're standing in front of the building. It's 71 Main Street. The foundation on this building appears to be in very good condition from first view, with the exception of, as we look at the front of the building at 71 Main, there's a remote meter reader outside the building, which I'm pointing to. If we go to the left from that meter reader, directly above it there's a crack in the masonry. And continuing left to the next window, from the basement window up to the main window on the house, there's a crack in the masonry which comes right straight up through, and it also goes underneath the windowsill. Front steps at this location are in a very depleted state. Across in front of the steps, you'll notice that the masonry has disappeared. And also on the right side of the building at 71, we look down and the masonry is falling away from the stone that was there. Again, it appears to be a single facing. Still talking at 71 Main, the approach walk coming to the steps is in good shape. It's old, but in good shape. '71 Main, looking down the right side of the building, down the alley, it appears as though there have been some cracks that I didn't notice at first look on the foundation that have been, someone has attempted to use some masonry to fix them. There's one as I'm pointing, there are several more here. Directly below the window on a diagonal it comes down and also protrudes into the foundation at this location. I don't anticipate any work in this area, however I just wish to note these imperfections. We're going to take a 180-degree turn to the left, standing at this location north of 71 Main, and we'll show the side of the next building, which I don't know a number for yet. It's a red brick building with a front approach on it. I believe it was called an old pharmacy here at one time. If you look at the foundation where it shows granite blocking, there's a lot of separation in it. The masonry is falling out. This is typical throughout this location. The granite sill is broken in several locations. Right to the sidewalk on Main Street. Sidewalk in front is also in pretty poor condition. Again, this is anticipated to be replaced. At this location, we're facing the front of the building, and I can now depict that it's 73 Main Street. The left south corner on Main is also typical of the alleyway, where the granite is all in a depleted state. And across the front, the blocks are the same. Condition of the front of this location would be considered, as far as quality goes, C. C being the worst, B being average, A being good. Sidewalk at this location is in poor condition. David, we're stopping right at this location, aren't we?
Well, we were talking about we're going to stop depending on where the sewer line comes out of this building. If it comes out over here, we got to put our last manhole here. If it comes out over in that corner, we'll just come up in the middle there someplace with the last manhole. So the service is coming in from.
Okay, we're just taking a video of the front of the building showing the face of the building above the front entrance, which is a short porch, almost like a water deflector. There is a crack on a diagonal from the right side of the window down to the overhang on the roof. This pretty much completes our pre-construction survey externally on Main Street. We will continue at a later date with a pre-construction survey on the interior of the buildings on Main Street. We're going to proceed from here up to Butternut or Oak.
And before we leave, we'll look at the side of the building here. Below the windowsill. Diagonal crack. And above the windowsill. Above the window, similar direction.
Okay. We're at the location of 69 Main. We're in the cellar of this residence. The foundation appears to be, looking at the north corner, directing the camera southward, appears to be in good condition. And it seems to be pretty typical throughout this location. There are no obvious cracks in the foundation. The foundation is contrived of, what do you call that stone? Is that granite with masonry?
Limestone frame.
It's a limestone with masonry for grouting. It appears to be in good condition. There has been, now would like to direct, there has been work in this area regrouting this whole area. However, on first visual, at where I'm pointing, there are no cracks. Up near the roof, the floor joists on the building, you will see it needs some additional masonry. However, there are no significant cracks at this location. We're also going to be, now we're going to be traveling with the camera in the southerly direction at this location. It appears to be pretty typical throughout. There has been some correction in the concrete foundation by the owner. They've attempted to fix the imperfections that they had noted in the past. This new masonry that's in there appears to be in good condition in all the locations where they have fixed it. The only other noted area that is in a depleted state would be the entrance stairway, which is on the opposite side of the building towards Cedar Street. That's in a very much depleted state. This will conclude our pre-construction survey at this location. We've concluded our pre-construction survey in the basement. The hatchway entrance that I had mentioned, you can note that the left side looking down the hatchway is in poor condition. The stairs are in very poor condition. And we'll direct the camera to the right side where you can see the concrete protruding is also in equally depleted state.
On the air.
Okay, I believe we're at 67 Main Street, and we are now on the Cedar Street side. As you go down the entrance to the cellar, we're looking at the left side of the building. Foundation shows a lot of wear. It's in relatively poor condition near the base. The masonry is all fallen out, and the rock is exposed without any masonry holding it together. We're going to be proceeding in the direction towards Main Street in this cellar. It isn't very well lit, so I hope that we can represent accurately what we see here. Okay, we are on the north, inside the foundation, inside the cellar, on the north side of the building facing Main Street. If you look at the corner where I'm pointing, the concrete masonry is actually fallen down. There's a pile on the ground, and it's in pretty poor condition. I'm now looking directly on the wall facing, that's adjacent to Main Street. There's quite a large hole through the wall where the masonry has fallen down. It also appears at this location that someone has actually parged the masonry, parged the rock with some concrete grouting to try to stabilize the foundation. It is not in good condition. I believe this is pretty much typical throughout this entire location. I'll attempt to show you the rest of the foundation. Continuing our survey at the same location, you'll note that all the masonry is in very poor condition at this location. I'm going to, on the Main Street side, the south corner of the building, where there are holes everywhere in the masonry, and this is also typical on the return towards Cedar Street. I think this pretty much concludes our survey at this location. The only thing we might add is I'll check the address to make sure that we have the right number on the house when we get outside on Main Street. Look at how the whole side of this building here is gone right in, looking down the side. What size is the whole bottom of the building's right in. Street, and we're at the location of 63 Main, and the foundation at this location is typical of that at 67. It's in a very depleted state, and I'm sure that it's typical inside to be the same. We've walked around this building, we've been in the cellar at 67, and they're just not in good condition whatsoever.
All right.
You do without light? Okay, we're in the basement of Manny's establishment, and we're facing Main Street, and we're on the north side of the foundation. At first look, it shows minor foundation deterioration at this location. There is some cracks in the foundation. On the north corner, it's a vertical crack with a slight diagonal direction. And as I look closer, we will attempt to video in on this. It's very difficult, but the crack is vertically right down to the actual base of the floor, and part of the wall has separated about a ½ inch and came in. This is typical right through to the top of the wall. This crack also shows that the masonry is in a threadbare condition around most of the rock at that location. Looking at the center, still heading south on Main, looking at facing Main Street but heading south across the foundation, you also notice this typical that the rock masonry has separated. It appears as though it's a limestone type rock mortared in. Approximately 9 feet off the corner, it shows considerable deterioration of the foundation at this location next to a vertical support beam. The rocks have separated, the masonry has disappeared. Goes to show you, I'm standing here.
Raleigh, it's inward about 2 inches.
Yep.
Particular stone.
Mr. Perrier just depicted to me that the stones are inwards about 2 inches, which reflects on the fact the stone hasn't moved, but the wall below it has. And that particular stone that he's depicted is tied into a beam, so it couldn't move, but the wall below it is coming in a direction towards the foundation, towards the cellar. It's very difficult, even when we're looking at it, to, at first look, to clearly depict what's here. But again, this wall has had some masonry work in the past. The mortar is in very poor condition. It crumbles in your hands. And this is typical down lower to the floor. You'll see the same deterioration on the foundation. We come over here where I assume at one time there was a window which has been bricked in. The masonry in that area is almost like stacked stone, not very stable. However, it is all there. Then when you go down below, there's an old pipe where it came in, looks like an old water service of some kind, and the masonry is all in a depleted state all around this location. The rocks are pretty much stacked there with no support. Looking at the corner, which would be the south corner on Main of Manny's, looking at Main Street, it's also typical that the masonry is falling apart in the corner at this location. On the returns going towards Cedar Street, first look, it doesn't appear to be in that bad a condition. You will see there's an old foundation base for a chimney, which is busted up. Apparently somebody has removed it in the past. I think that would pretty much end our pre-construction survey at this location. We're at Manny's tenement building, which is 55 Main. We're facing the north Main Street entrance in the building. We're in the cellar, and we're facing the north side of the cellar. If you look over in the corner, there's a pipe that comes down on a diagonal. And
guys, just come on out, I'll be next door.
okay, thank you. Immediately behind that pipe, you'll note the holes in the block, and there's quite a lot of separation. The masonry is in a very threadbare condition at that location. There isn't much more to talk about it. We'll just say that we're continuing south on Main Street across the foundation, and it's pretty typical throughout that location, up to about 18 inches in elevation. From there up, it appears to be, at first view, in a pretty decent condition, but it's typical throughout, right to the south corner, that the masonry is bad. Mr. Perrier from the village is pointing out that the masonry is poor.
Stick a figure right in it and come right off.
Mr. Perrier has identified that the masonry, if you just touch it, it will come right apart, which means that it is separated through age and also through horizontal push from frost in the ground. This is also typical on the return on both directions of this building at this location, where the masonry would probably be in a threadbare location. If you look up near where the floor joists meet the top of the wall, the camera is depicting that the masonry is falling away at that location. This pretty much precludes our pre-construction survey at this location. I was premature at concluding our pre-construction survey at Manny's. We're still at the same location. We're on the north side on Main, facing the wall adjacent to, at a right angle to Main Street. And it appears as though there was an entrance to this building in the past that has been blocked in with rock and mortar, and it's in a in a very much depleted state. You can see daylight outside through the blocks at one location, and we'd like to note that it's pretty much not much more than stacked stone at this location, with concrete masonry in a depleted state between it. Now, I believe this does conclude our survey here. Auto Parts Champlain. There's a considerable amount of water on the floor, which makes it difficult for the cameraman to get over here and clearly depict what's happening here. So I'm going to verbally represent what I see here. Facing Main Street, on the south corner of the building, facing Main Street, approximately 2 feet from the corner, there's a diagonal crack in the masonry which protrudes right down to the window well opening that is there. The masonry is also typically in a depleted state. The wall appears from where I'm looking at this to be in relatively good shape, other than the fact that the masonry is cracked and it shows a lot of wear. Going northerly at that same location, the wall is pretty much typical of what I've just identified. When I get to the extreme north side of the foundation, there are bricks which are falling down, and the limestone foundation shows a series of cracks on a diagonal which have opened up approximately 2 inches. That is pretty much typical on the return on both walls for about 8 feet. There isn't much more that can be said about this, except I wish I would have brought a bowl. I keep well, I don't have to